Morning, everyone. Our children can be dismissed to their Sunday school classes if they would like. I'm not sure if you think or feel the same way as I do. I love Christmas season. I love the New Year celebration. I love the focus on Jesus and the extra time off and the time with family. I can't fail to mention the food. However, I have to admit, I kind of feel like when it all ends, I like it. I like it when it's all over with. I can go on my normal life and get back to normal routine and get on to the things I want to experience in the new year, such as 2026. How about we get back to our the routine of going through our preaching theme? Anybody remember our preaching theme? Anyone? Anyone? If you remember that movie there. Our theme is going back to the basics, studying the A-list Old Testament stories, and we're just past the halfway mark of getting through this preaching theme. Our preaching theme verses is going to be from Romans chapter 15, verse 4, and here it is up on the screen, and it says, "For whatever was written in former days was written for our instruction, that through endurance and through the encouragement of the Scriptures, we might have hope." On Sunday, February 15th, I'm asking Blue Ridge Christian Church to write this verse from memory. That'll be the conclusion of this theme, unless something goes haywire. But that's the plan anyway. So, would you please pray with me, and we'll jump into our preaching theme again. Let's pray. God, we love you. We love your word. And God, I pray that you would be with us as we look at these verses this morning, as we look at this A-list Old Testament story that we've heard perhaps many times as a child. God, I pray that you'd help us to fully understand at least the verses we're going to read. God, it is my prayer that you would help us to interpret everything correctly. And I pray, Father, that it would be encouragement to us, that, Father, this story would bring us hope. This is why you had it written down for us. So please help us as we study this morning. Please speak through me. God, it is my prayer that you'd reach us wherever we are at spiritually. You can do that. I pray, Father, that you'd help us to put away distractions and, Father, just really maybe pay attention to what you're trying to tell us this morning through your word. Would you please encourage us? Would you please help us to want to grow closer to you, want to become more like you? I ask, God, that you be with us now. Please speak through me. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. Last Wednesday afternoon, I had lunch with a lady who used to be in the Blue Ridge Christian Church youth ministry when I was the youth minister. And she now lives in Jefferson City. She's about 38 years old. And out of the blue, my wife ran into her a few weeks ago. And when we were on vacation, in fact, we were driving down to Branson, she called my wife Heather, and she had a question, and I got to talk to her on the phone. We finally were able to meet for lunch on Wednesday, about 4 or 5 days ago. Meeting with her was a good thing for me. Our conversation helped me with today's sermon, and I think that my study of the sermon, it helped her too, but she didn't say that. It's kind of weird how she's helping me, and it's with the same story I'm helping her. And she told me one story that's just a tremendous help in the current disappointment and frustration and hurt we were dealing with our daughter Madeline. Well, at our lunch, she shared with me her struggle with having a broken family, her addictions that she's had, going in and out of rehab. The guy she'd been living with for the last 10 years is now in prison. the baby that she lost because of a miscarriage, and her family thought she had an abortion. There are many other bad decisions that she shared, and she shared with me what God had done and what God is doing in her life, and she's in such better place now. There were a lot of tears. I would say good tears, but there are a lot of tears, and as we're sitting in a restaurant, people seeing her crying, I'm getting glares because they think I'm the one causing the tears. Because of her bad decisions, she said she knows her dreams of finding and marrying a good Christian guy and buying a house and being a mom, experiencing, she said, what she sees other women are, what they get to have. She says those dreams are gone. Even though God helped her make an abrupt change in her life, she said the light of life is gone. That doesn't mean she is suicidal. It just means that because of her past, she doesn't think she has the hope of joy anymore. She doesn't think that she could ever fulfill any of her dreams. It's just go to work just to survive. God and His Word have a lot of messages for us. One of them is this. But before I get to that, what would you tell a young lady like this? She's about 35 years old. What would you tell her that the light of life is gone and she just doesn't have the hope of joy anymore? What would be your answer? What would be your response to her? Well, here's mine. With God, not all is lost. She has lost so much, no doubt about it. She told me her deepest, darkest point of her life, it was in winter, very cold out, snowing, and she had nothing. She had no one, and she's sitting on a curb. Would you please turn in your Bibles to Judges chapter 13. The Old Testament book of Judges about a rebellious Israel. It's about Israel's rebellion after Joshua died. Joshua, if you remember, is the successor to Moses in leading Israel. And we're to the point where Joshua died and Israel, in so many different ways, has no leader. And the book of Judges is about the lives and the courageous acts of the 12 God individually appointed judges of Israel. There are 11 men and 1 woman. There are 12 total. They were not chosen all at once, and they were chosen at different times. The 12 judges, these 11 men and 1 woman, they don't wear black robes. They're not sitting behind a big bench. They're not making judgments between disputes between people. We need to get that out of our minds. That's what we think in America now. That's what a judge is. But a judge back in the Old Testament time, during this time, God selected them. God gifted them to be Israelite leaders. They're not kings. We don't see them acting as kings. We didn't see Israel rise up and make them king and be leader, but God led them to defeat whatever nation was ruling over Israel because of Israel's rebellion. God allowed this, and there are several nations at different times that came and took over Israel. God would raise up this judge, and they would encourage and they would help Israel to defeat this nation after, of course, they repented to God. Well, after the death of Moses, his successor Joshua, Israel spiraled out of control, had great sins, and it's cyclical. It just keeps on going. As you read Judges, as I did as a very young man, it made me mad. God would save them, and they'd go back to their sinful ways, and then God would save them, and they'd go back to their sinful ways. And I was angry at Israel. I can't believe you guys should do this. And then Imagine it's God speaking to me. He's like, Trent, is your life a whole lot different? Here's their spiral. See if your life is like this. They're restored. Then they would rebel. And there's retribution. The retribution was God, as He promised, if you rebel against me, other nations will come and take you over. That's the retribution. They would repent. God would raise up somebody to be a judge. Then they'd be restored. And they'd rebel. It just kept on going over and over. You can see it so easily in Judges. The content of Judges. You have to read like the whole book before you get to what the proposition is. What's a message for us, perhaps. And it's the very last verse of Judges gives us maybe the proposition of the book, and it's this. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Not even God. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. If you ever wonder what the world would be, what our nation would be like in complete anarchy, Judges might be getting you on the right road. It is not a pretty picture at all. Judges 13 begins the historical account of the last judge, the 12th one that God raised up. And in so many ways he's different than the other 11, but you know him and I know him as Samson. The story of Samson teaches us this, gives us hope, no matter what we've done, no matter how many times we've done it, no matter how much we have lost. With God, not all is lost. So we're going to look at this, life and loss. Story of Samson is 4 chapters. It's chapters 14, 15, and 16. There's no way in a sermon context we can read all 4 chapters, the whole story of Samson. So we're probably just going to hit some highlights here in a moment. I'm going to read a few verses in the beginning. That's Judges 13, and then we'll read a whole bunch of verses at the very end in Judges chapter 16. Let's look first at Samson's life. All right, I've told you to turn to Judges 13, and I never did. If you would you please read with me the first 5 verses? This will introduce us to who Samson is. What maybe, how do we know God is working in Samson's life? Here we go. Judges 13, the first 5 verses. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. There was a certain man of Zorah, of the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold, you are barren, and you have not borne children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore, be careful, and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb. And he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. We see right away God has restored Israel from the Ammonites. God had restored Israel through the last judge. His name was Abdon. Israel went back to their rebellious ways. Verse 1 tells us. This is what makes Judges so frustrating to read, almost too much like it's a mirror of our life. And God allowed the Philistines. This is the first time the Philistines have ruled over Israel. And they did it for a time of 40 years. When Samson's born, it's maybe been, 20 years? We just don't know. We aren't told. Then we read this. We've heard this before, haven't we? A wife who is barren shall conceive and have a son. We are not told of Samson's mom's name, but his dad's name is Manoah. He lived with his wife in a town called Zorah. Here is a map. Zorah is circled. I highlighted Jerusalem. In fact, this area, we're just talking straight west of Jerusalem. Most of what we're reading about the life of Samson happens just west of Jerusalem. And as you can see Philistia, that's the land of the Philistines. It borders right on the northern border of Philistia, where the Philistines live, who control Israel at this time. God selected Manoah and his wife's baby boy. Soon he's going to be the next judge, who's going to lead Israel. Don't know how at this point, but he's going to raise up this baby boy, and perhaps he's going to, like all the other judges, he's going to inspire, he's going to move Israel to fight against the Philistines and end the rule over them and be restored in their relationship with God and restored in their life as a nation. God also selected Manoah and his wife's baby boy Samson to be a Nazirite. Anybody have any idea what a Nazirite is? Anyone? Nazirite comes from Numbers chapter 6. Normally, it is a Jew who volunteered to take a vow to maybe. It's kind of like what we would do when we fast. We want use that time to grow closer to God, and they would take this vow to maybe concentrate. I'm saying it wrong. It's not concentrate. Consecrate themselves to God. Always, of course, by obeying the law of Moses, and then temporarily doing away with all things grapes, not eating grapes and not drinking grape juice, and which, of course, was wine. No razor would touch their head, no haircuts, and no touching of any corpse, whether it's an animal or human, no touching any corpse. God selected Samson to be a Nazirite from birth. This is not voluntary. Samson did not have a choice whether he's going to be a Nazirite or not. God chose for him to be a Nazirite. Don't really know why. And it doesn't look like it's just temporary. Perhaps all of Samson's life he would live as a Nazirite. And perhaps this is exactly why God told Samson's mom not to drink any wine. Do not drink any alcohol. Because the boy inside of her is a Nazirite. What a pregnant woman eats and drinks is what a baby inside of her eats and drinks. Don't drink any alcohol. Because of being selected to be a Nazirite, Samson's hair would grow to be quite long. And it is a symbol that God is going to give Samson, as you probably remember hearing this as a small child. Samson is going to have incredible strength. He's going to have incredible stamina. It is miraculous. His strength is miraculous. And the long hair on his head is a symbol of that strength. It is not the strength. There's nothing magical about his hair. If he has his hair, then he has God's strength. All right. God selected him. And this is Trent's opinion. Samson is spoiled. Living so close to Philistia, Samson grew up around Philistines. He developed an unhealthy liking to Philistine women. It is all throughout his life. This unhealthy desire may have ruined God's initial plan for his life of being a judge. Perhaps all of us will be the judge of that. As a young man, Samson went to a nearby town called Timnah. It is circled there with blue, in blue there. You see, it's right on the border of the Philistines there. He spotted a Philistine woman, and Samson eventually told his parents, "She's good. She's right for my eyes." That is the best basis for any marriage, correct? She's good for my eyes. Do not doubt for a second. Many ladies have told this to her parents after seeing me. Never. Do not doubt that for a minute. Just kidding. He tells his parents, his dad's name is Manoah, I don't know his mom's name. This is what he says to his parents. I do not know the attitude behind it. I do not know how it was projected, but this is what I read. I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah. Now get her for me as a wife. You ever talk to your parents like that? Those of you that have kids, did you let your kids talk to you like that? I saw a brand new car sitting on the lot. It was good for my eyes. Now go get me that car. Youth and children, do you talk to your parents like this now? This is just Trent thinking. Don't know if this is true or not. This is their only child. We always think and talk about only children are very spoiled. Except in Kendall's situation, we don't know why he's so spoiled. But anyway, it could be, maybe not just because Samson is their only child, it could be also, they know God has chosen Samson. God's going to use Samson. And so perhaps it's, whenever Samson wants, it's hard to tell him, no, I don't know if God is working through Samson and he needs that new Tonka truck. I don't know. Samson needs that new iPhone. We got to go get it for him because maybe God is working through him in that way. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it. Why is this? And to a point where his parents would allow him to marry a foreign woman when we know this is against what God had given for Israel to do. Don't marry foreign women. But his parents ultimately go and they do this. We are not given the woman's name, but she does become Samson's wife for at least a few hours. He's selected, looks like to me he's spoiled, and he is strong. Samson and his parents are on their way to Timnah to start the wedding feast. He's going to be marrying this woman. Samson himself is going to prepare this big feast. The Bible tells us this is what the young men did in this day. On their way to Timnah, a young lion roars and runs towards Samson. It says twice, Samson doesn't have anything in his hands. And it says he ripped the lion apart. At the wedding feast, Samson makes a foolish challenge to 30 men that are there from Timnah who are there attending the wedding feast. In the challenge that Samson gives, he loses. In order to pay his debt of the challenge that he lost, he goes to another Philistine city, kills 30 men, steals their clothes, and brings their clothes to those 30 men. Later on in his life, an army of 1,000 Philistine soldiers destroy a Judean town of Lehi. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. You can see where it is there. 1,000 Philistine soldiers come to this Judean town, and they destroy it and they burn it. They're looking for Samson. They want him. They want to put him to death. 3,000 Jewish men. They know where Samson is. Do they fight the 1,000 Philistine soldiers? No. They go where Samson is and they say, hey, Philistines want you. and we're going to take you to the Philistines. And so Samson allows them to tie him up with 2 brand new ropes. They take Samson, they hand him over to the 1,000 army of the Philistines and says, "Here you go." Not long after that, Samson breaks these 2 ropes without breaking a sweat. He grabs a donkey's jawbone and he kills every one of those 1,000 Philistine soldiers. Later on in life, the men in Gaza. Here's Gaza. You ever hear Gaza in the news today? It is one of the oldest cities that's still maybe around, Gaza, still called by its original name. He goes to Gaza. He's in the home of a Philistine prostitute. The people of Gaza knows that he's there. And at night, they surround the house, and they're going to ambush him when he comes out. We don't know how, but Samson learns of it. Middle of the night at some time, he slips through the men that are waiting around. They have closed the gates of the city to box him in. Samson picks up both gates, including the large post that the gate swings on, picked them both up, and carried them both 40 miles to the town of Hebron. You can see it in the lower right corner of the screen there. He sets them on a hill in Hebron. The only reason we can think of why he did this, because it's a sign to those 3,000 Jewish men. Instead of fighting the Philistines and decided one to hand him over to the Philistines, he puts the gates of the city in the center of Judah, maybe just as a reminder to them, remember what you did to me. That's strong. That is miraculous strength. The Bible kind of indicates to us is at this time, Samson realizes God is using him. Maybe to be a judge. Maybe he's heard the stories of all the previous 11 judges before him. He's selected, he's spoiled, he's strong, and he is sinful. He's a womanizer. He's chased after several Philistine women. When Samson prepared the wedding feast with those 30 men of the Philistines there, he prepares this big feast for his wedding, being married to this woman. We're not given the name. And when he lost that challenge, he goes and kills 30 innocent Philistine men. Had nothing to do with this. I don't think that is why God gave him miraculous strength. What do you think? He famously scraped honey from a beehive that the honeybees have made inside that torso of the lion he tore apart, touching a dead body, a corpse. To pay the debt, he killed those 30 Philistine men. Later on in his life, he went to Gaza and had relations with a Philistine prostitute. Finally, what led to Samson's fall was he loved and lived with another Philistine woman. You know her name, Delilah. Tradition says this. In my study for the sermon, I had never heard this before. This is what tradition says. Delilah is a sister of the woman that he married from Timnah, the Philistine woman. She may have been the younger sister that her dad offered to give to Samson when he had already given Samson's wife away to his best man at that wedding. Delilah is offered a fortune to seduce Samson. Samson's flaws preceded him. Everybody knows he's got a weakness for Philistine women, and they're using that against Samson. All right, this next word, I'm apologizing before I get to it. Are you ready? I'm apologizing for it. I know some of you do not like this word. It is a biblical word. It is used 12 times in the Old Testament. Starts with the word S. It's the word stupid. And I'm not picking on Samson. Trent has done many stupid things before. I am stupid sometimes. In order to look at this level of stupidity, would you please read with me? We're in Judges 16 now. Very last chapter describing the life of Samson here. Would you read with me 16 verses 4 through 6? Sets the stage of what's going to happen here. Judges 16, 4 through 6. Here we go. After this, he, talking about Samson, loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, seduce him, and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, and that we may bind him to humble him. And we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. Each of us will give you that. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound that one could subdue you. Delilah lived in the valley of Sorek. It's just to the south and to the east of Timnah. And Samson probably went through this valley many times as he's going into the cities of Philistine, and we know he did, just by reading his account. Usually it's for bad reasons. And Delilah has offered money to seduce Samson, learn the secret of his strength. And one scholar says this might tell us that Samson was a very small man, that there is a reason, a miraculous divine reason why he has so much strength. Find out what that reason is, because, he's not like a bodybuilder. It is estimated. Are you ready for this? It is estimated. Now we don't know for sure how many lords of this town where she lives. We don't know how many there were, but it's estimated. Let's say they're on maybe an average of 3. She's 1,100 from each, 11 pieces of silver from each of them. It's estimated 550 years of wages to seduce him. We know Samson is at the very top of their most wanted list, wouldn't you say? 550 years of wages if you'll seduce him and get us the reason for his strength and how we can subdue him. Would you do that? I imagine she had to give up a lot to do it. We have to admit, Samson lives with her. We think it's in Philistine area. Does it seem pretty stupid to live in your enemy's area? If one Philistine woman has already betrayed you, do you think it's going to stop with just her? I mean, we're getting stupid, but it's going to get far worse. Simon, we can see Delilah gets right to work. Her seduction works. Everybody knew it would. Her seduction works. And this man, Samson, comes and lives with her. She right away is asking him, give me the secret of your strength. He first lies to Delilah and tells her, if I'm bound with 7 wet bowstrings, I will lose my strength. Now, the Bible seems like, that night, maybe just a few hours later, she gets 7 wet bowstrings and ties him up with it. It could have been a few weeks after. It could have been a few days. It could have been a few months after. We aren't told how long. But, if it was that night, it seems pretty stupid that he'd keep on doing this. But anyway, she ties him up with these 7 wet bowstrings, and she has soldiers lying in wait, and she says, Samson, wake up, the Philistines are upon you. And he breaks the 7 strings like nothing and failure. Delilah's not happy about it. Can you imagine wanting that money? She's not happy with Samson. You lied to me. She asking me again, tell me, what's the power of your strength? How can you be subdued? Where does your strength lie? He lies to her again and says, if you tie me up with new ropes, I'll lose my strength. While he slept, it could have been weeks later after he says this. It could have been days later. It could have been months later. She gets new ropes while he's sleeping. All I can say is this dude is a heavy sleeper. She ties him up with these new ropes, wakes him up. Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He wakes up and he breaks the ropes like nothing. Failure. Delilah, wanting that money. She is angry about his lies, but she asked him a third time. Samson lied again. Saying is, if his hair is woven into 7 locks. Now this is as far as we know what's going on. We know about getting his long hair, weaving it into 7 locks. But there's also this thing called the web, and there's a thing called the pin. We don't know for sure what this is. But she weaves his hair into 7 locks. She does the thing with the web, whatever it is. And the thing, whatever the pin is, does the thing with the pin. And she wakes him up and says, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And he wakes up, he pulls the web and the pin, and he still has his strength. She let him know how mad and disappointed in him she is. Did Samson ever get mad at her? Crazy. She asked him a 4th time. He didn't give an answer. She asked day after day after day. She wants that money. Tell me where your strength lies. How can you be subdued? She kept telling him. She kept nagging and nagging and nagging for years. Oh, the things that we'll do for money. Samson grew so tired of it. His soul was, do you see it in verse 16 of chapter 16? His soul is vexed to death. If you have the New American Standard, it says, he's annoyed to death. Husbands, have you ever been annoyed to death with nagging? Parents, have you ever been annoyed to death with the same question your children keep asking over and over and over again? He got so tired of it, he felt like he's going to die. Finally, perhaps thinking Delilah poses no threat to him. Maybe it's just a temporary moment of insanity. He tells her the truth. Maybe he's drunk. But he tells her the truth. Is this not stupid? She's done it 3 times. You know she's going to try it the 4th. Is this not stupid? Come on. Come on, all of us can agree this is stupid. And if you look at some of the things in my life, we'd all agree, yeah, that's pretty stupid. Delilah knew he's telling the truth this time. We don't know how he knew it, but he pours out his heart to her. She knows this. She tells those lords, get the money ready. He's told me the truth. Soldiers come and wait. They're lying in wait. He told her, a razor's never touched my head, but if you cut off my hair, I'll lose my strength. He falls asleep. We don't know if it's the same night she gets the answer. Could have been weeks later. His hair is still in 7 locks. He's, well, I kind of like that. So his hair is still in 7 locks. She has somebody come in, we don't know who, to help her cut off the 7 locks of hair. The dude is a deep sleeper. Would you read with me Samson's loss? Verses 20 and 21 of chapter 16. We're getting towards the very end of his story. Let's read verses 20 and 21. And she said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he awoke from his sleep and said, I will go out as the other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And the Philistine seized him and gouged out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza, bound him with bronze shackles, and he ground at the mill in the prison. This is up for debate. I am not saying this is necessarily what happened, but maybe a sixth identifier perhaps of Samson's life is he squandered his strength that God gave him. I think God knew it was going to happen. God knows everything. But I struggle to think that this is exactly the way God drew it up. Samson getting his eyes gouged out. But I don't know. God is going to save Israel, but was this his original plan? Is this plan B? I don't know. Did he squander what God was planning on doing through him and using that strength for? I don't know. Now, let's look at loss, not lost. Admittedly, Samson suffered tremendous loss, did he not? He suffered tremendous loss. You could say all of it is by his own choosing, by his own decisions. Let's go through what he lost. His hair. It's not that bad, okay, people? Losing your hair is not that bad. Since he lost his hair, he lost his God-given strength. The end of verse 20 is very sad. Perhaps you could say it's one of the saddest verses in the Bible. Well, I'm out of order. He lost his eyes, they gouged out his eyes, lost his freedom, lost his dignity, lost his way. He lost the Lord. Doesn't mean God doesn't want anything to do with him, never talk to him again, but he lost what God was doing through him, perhaps. Would you please read with me verse 22? I stopped at verse 21. Let's read this last verse of this paragraph here. The hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. I don't think his hair was the only thing that was growing, do you? This is just Trent thinking. It's been a long time. He has to push this huge rock grinding wheel, grinding flour to make it into grain into flour. And it did probably just day after day after day. Lost his freedom. He lost his dignity from whom he was respected before, and now he just pushes this big rock. He can't see, doesn't have any eyesight. His hair starting to grow back. I don't think that's the only thing growing. Here's Trent's guess. Guilt is growing inside of him. Regret is growing inside Samson. Repentance may be growing inside Samson. His faith in God might be growing. His relationship with God may be growing as well. God's purpose, or maybe God's repurpose for his life, may be growing also inside of Samson. Samson's strength is growing. Now, would you please read? There's our final verses. Here's the final verses we're going to read. Let's find out how this ends. Would you please read with me? Verse 23. We stopped reading at verse 22. Let's read 23 through 30. You remember this. You remember this, probably hearing this in Sunday school as a kid. Verse 23. Now the lords of the Philistines gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and to rejoice. And they said, our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hand. And when the people saw him, they praised their God. For they said, our God has given our enemy into our hand, the ravager of our country, who killed many of us. And when their hearts were merry, they said, call Samson, that he may entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he entertained them. They made him stand between the pillars on which the house rests. And Samson said to the young man who held him by the hand, "Let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them." Now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there, and on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women who looked on while Samson entertained. Then Samson called to the Lord. It's the only time in the story of Samson we hear of Samson calling to the Lord. I guess in this manner. And said, "O Lord God, please remember me. And please strengthen me only this once. O God, that I may be avenged on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested. He leaned his weight against them, his right hand on the one that's on his right, and his left hand on the one that is on the other. And Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he bowed with all of his strength, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he had killed during his life. Samson had suffered tremendous loss because of God. Not all is lost. God had mercy on Samson. God forgave Samson. God gave Samson grace. As Samson cried out to God in the midst of his humiliation, God heard him. And God granted his prayer requests, both of them. God gave Samson his strength back. And God allowed Samson to die with the Philistines. But before that, that young man leading Samson has to be led because he can't see. They have a small boy doing it, probably because more humiliation. Little boy leading him around like a little puppy. He asked him, "Let me feel those pillars." The whole house is resting on those 2 pillars. There's a deck, there's a roof. It's all resting on these 2 middle pillars in the middle of the building. Samson asked God for strength one more time. He bowed his head as he pushes these pillars apart, and the whole building comes crashing down, killing everyone there. Samson is the only entertainer who literally brought the house down. Sorry, had to do that. Wasn't mine, I read it. Come on. Speaking of not all is lost. Samson killed more Philistines without his eyes than he did with his eyes. With God, not all is lost. The truth is the same for that young lady I had lunch with on Wednesday afternoon. Because of her sins or bad decisions, she's still suffering a lot of loss. She feels like she's lost the light of life. None of her dreams can be realized. Just like with Samson, even with so much loss, with God, not all is lost. She can get that light, that hope of joy, that joy of life back. She can even marry a Christian man And she could, with that Christian man, they could live in a house together and still have a Christian family. Would you please stand? This truth, with God, not all is lost. With that truth, it's absolute. It's true for all people, of all times, of all places. Not all is lost when God is in the picture. The truth then is true for you, and it's true for me. These things were written, as our theme verse says. These things were written for our encouragement. These things, like Samson, are written to bring us hope. That though we have really blown it, I mean really blown it, we've suffered and maybe still suffering through our consequences. But with God, not all is lost. Doesn't matter what we've done. Doesn't matter how much we've suffered. With God, not all is lost. As we sing our decision hymn, if you are ready to maybe turn back to God like Samson, would you please come as we sing our decision song?